welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Dave and Doug Aldrich. How are you?
Good. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Good, good. I'm glad to see you. So, people that don't know, Doug is been in a bunch of bands, and sometimes you're in more than one band at a time, which is I want to talk about. It's a great skill you have. Your Dead Daisies is your main band at this
Actually,
point.
it it seems like when Sean, it's weird. It's a lot of times people have things they want you to do or a session or something, and
Mhm.
you'll jump in and do it, and then all of a sudden they call it a band, but it's not really. I've since I would say about since 2019, I basically stopped doing everything else because it was just I really wanted to focus 100% on one thing, and that's the Dead Daisies. So we just, we had a couple albums that we did during that time, a couple tours. So I really don't have that experience at the moment, but I have done it in the past, and it's
Yeah.
cool. But I think that for me, really, if I'm going to be in a band, I want to be really dedicated to that for the time that I'm doing it, and and then if I do a session, that's cool, but I wouldn't. Sometimes those sessions, the record company says, "Oh, well, let's just call it, whatever,"
Oh,
and
yeah.
but it ends up feeling like the fans aren't getting a real band; they're getting a project. So I wanted to stop doing that.
Is that why you're not doing the Revolution Saints? Because I mean, that was one of the bands. To me, it looked like on paper that the Dead Daisies has been doing so much playing, you don't really have the time for it right now. So that's what it looked like to me on paper, type of
Well,
deal.
that's true, and also it's just difficult to have the three of us get together because we were, Dean and I were actually later in the Dead Daisies together, but
Yeah,
Jack was constantly busy with Night Ranger, and
they
then
tour a
Dean
lot.
was busy. Yeah, and so what happens is for example, if Jack goes out with the Revolution Saints, then that means that Night Ranger can't go out. So it's
Right.
like everyone kind of has their priorities, and so um, that that was a really fun project. It was really cool, and I had a great time doing it. But I just felt like I did want to dedicate more time to, especially since when we got Glenn in the Dead Daisies, we were going to be writing a lot and doing stuff, and I just felt like it was time to step out of that. So, but they got a record I think coming out soon, so I'm excited for those guys.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I just figured I always wonder like how you guys can do it because there is so many people. You guys have so many different bands you're in, and then you're right. If one person, all you guys do that one project group, all the other bands are left lingering when all those members are hanging. So it's hard. But
Yeah, yeah, that's I think and that's why you got you got certain musicians that they can do a big tour for a while, or they can do an album cycle for a while, and then they can take a six month break and do something else that they want to do. They could Anybody could do that, but it's difficult to coordinate that with three or four or five guys. That's why you've got so many projects where it's a new name, it's a new mix of people that we all know and love, but it doesn't end up touring because it's just too hard to get people together. So
well, thank
but
you.
I love to record. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I've always had a great time doing those sessions. Like, I mean, the first Revolution Saints I did, I'll tell you this, Sean, it was cool. I was actually on a break from Whitesnake, and it was supposed to be Dean's solo record because he's obviously such an amazing singer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he asked me to plan it, and I was in Vegas doing this Raiding the Rock Vault show. It was really a lot of fun, and we were um, we were performing at the Hilton Hotel, which later changed his name to the Westgate. But that's where Elvis had finished his residency, and there was this underneath the stage. There was this bar that he used to, I guess, during in between songs, he would go down there and like meet up with friends, have a smoke or whatever. And there was just a bunch of junk down there. So I just asked the people at the hotel, could I clean it out? And that's where I recorded guitars for the first Revolution Saints record. And then the second one, I think I was on the road with the Dead Daisies, and I was just doing solos like on the bus or wherever. I was just trying to, finish it up. So I love the process of recording and all that. But right now, again, I'm getting ready to do a bunch of writing. So I'm focusing on what that's going to be for.
the abundance of, I mean, you've been started recording since 83 though. I mean, it's like 2023. I mean, you've been doing albums like nonstop. I don't even know where you get the material from at this point. Do you ever feel like you're like
I
either
always get inspiration.
retreading it? I don't need, when I listen to all your music, all your different projects, I don't ever hear a certain lick where I'm like, I've heard that before. Like literally, and I don't know if it's geared because it's towards the
Well,
bands or just how you write.
I think that I think I probably do have some stuff that I rely on that somebody would might say if they know a lot of my work, they might go, yeah, that sounds like something that Doug would write. Or um, there are certain, there's only 12 notes in the scale, so there's going to be some situations where you hear stuff that's like, okay, well, that was the same kind of little thing, a little different, but it was on a Lion album or a Burning Rain album. But I just get influenced and inspired by things all the time, and it just comes out, sounding fresh to me. So then I'll present those ideas to usually the singer that I'm working with. In this case, it's John Corabi,
Right.
and then whatever he gets excited about, that's what we'll work on. And of course, if somebody else has got an idea, I can help them with it without trying to, change it too much. Like Glenn had a few ideas that he needed help with, so I just, helped guide him to the finished product. But it still sounds like a Glenn type of song. So it just depends on the situation. But yeah, there's only 12 notes in the scale, so you're gonna have some situations where it's like,
There's
oh,
a
I think
style and a
I've done
sound
that.
you have. Yeah, I hear that, but I'm saying, but I like
Yeah.
listen to all your music, all your groups through the years, and I've never heard you like, there's certain artists I have heard in all these project bands. I've heard licks. I'm like, hey, I know that's like one of their bigger albums they did in the past. I've never heard like a big riff or lick of yours they've actually heard before. I mean, it could sneak by, but it was never some, you know what I mean? And I thought that's fantastic because the
Thanks, man.
challenge
I
is
appreciate it.
you're welcome. I mean, and I dig it. I'm like, man, and it feels like you're getting just better. Not that you weren't, I, not
Well,
better. I mean, not you were
I'm
bad.
working with
You know what I'm saying? It just feels like you're growing more.
uh,
You're layering more. I don't know what it is. It's just each album you do is just
well, I appreciate it. The interesting thing is too is like right now I'm really excited about some stuff that's coming up early next year that is going to be slightly different than anything I've done in the past with the Dead Daisies, and we're can't really reveal too much at this point, but it's it's very exciting. It's something really different. So I'm inspired by that. When
cool.
you have, and when we did the last two albums with Ben Gross, it was really cool. He does records like a film director. Like we'll get the basic tracks down and basic guitars, and then he'll say, I need you for an hour. I want to do some kind of a top line on the chorus of this song, and I want you to just, I know you already did your guitar part, but I want you to just double it again with this wacky sound,
Yeah.
and then I want you to do just make some noises in between. And he would just, and wouldn't I wouldn't hear the whole song. I would just go to those parts and do what he asked, and then he kind of would manipulate it after the fact, and that's how those last two albums are very thick and rich, and
Yeah.
um, it is different, especially we had Glenn on vocals too, so that was a huge difference. But I definitely get inspired by new ideas and new in terms of production, or like the next thing that we do is going to be different. So I'm definitely excited about that.
Well, and I think what it is, yeah, maybe that's what it is. I mean, he sounds like he's obviously builds a skeleton. He uses all you guys, all the players, like as like paintbrushes to color the finish the painting. Like he puts the outline in with the skeleton of the music, and he kind of just fills it in, which is pretty fantastic. I haven't heard
Yeah,
that before.
he's he's got his sound. Yeah, it was so weird because you know what the song sounded like on the demo.
Right? Yeah, the core of it.
When we would track it, it would have drums and bass and guitars, and we would fix up the guitars and maybe do a couple of overdubs, obviously solos and stuff. And then he starts sprinkling his ideas in there, and it really gets his sound. It's like it's big, a big part of those two albums was Ben Gross.
Yeah, I'm excited
So
as a player to hear to think your album's done, and then here, I'm turning in a 10, and you're just like, yep, here's a 12. Like you're like he just adds to it. You're like, I didn't even hear that. Yeah.
No, but it was funny too because he would always be like, I just need you. And I'd be like, okay, I'm leaving on the whatever it was. I think I was leaving for a tour last summer, maybe in June or something, or May. Okay, Ben, I'm leaving on May 30th for the tour. Got rehearsal. And it's like May 29th. He's going, I just need you for half an hour just to come in. And there's like two little things. It won't take you more than, 30 minutes. That's it. And I'm like, dude, I'm packing. I got to go. He goes, it would probably only take you like 10 minutes. So I'd go in and knock it out. And then finally, he's mixing the album. And then you hear like, oh, that's cool. He'd get some little sound. He would just go, give me a pick scrape or something. And then he would make it like kind of in the very background, kind of zoom across this audio spectrum. And you would just go like, never noticed it really, but I did because I remember he asked me to do it. So it's just cool little noises and stuff.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, the Dead Daisies albums are so fun to listen to, and it just doesn't even matter what the song is. You just know it's going to be this huge party, like this huge sound. It is a great sound. One of the things I love
it's definitely a party right now, my friend. Sorry.
No. The two questions, actually, no, kind of led to it. Maybe you can't share now. The two questions I had was a potential of you doing any kind of solo work or like doing an album with like different singers because you work with so many musicians, like songs you haven't used in other bands, like you put aside and say, I've worked with Corabi, I've worked with Glenn, you know what I mean? Like do that, or Keith. And the other question is, I love the last Burning Rain album. I think that was the best you guys have done. That was like the bomb.
Oh, thanks,
you're welcome. Your guitar work, it's like hard rock 70s. It was like the perfect mix. The band was just like so good. And that was 2019.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was and it was hard to squeeze that. We had to finish up our contract with the label, and they were like, they kind of said to me, Doug, look, we've been waiting. We really want this to be done, and I had tour dates and stuff. So again, I remember I had to go on a cruise or something. I forget when I was doing solos in my room, like in between shows. But thank you. I mean, that's definitely a it's a pleasure to do when me and Keith can get together and do it. He's a great singer, and we've got a cool sound together, so yeah. There isn't any plan at the moment for anything with Burning Rain. Like I said, I'm just focused on Dead Daisies, and there's your other question about doing a solo album with singers. My dream would have been to have done something like that when Ronnie Dio was alive, because that would have been the icing on the cake to get Glenn and David Coverdale and all these singers, other singers I worked with, guys like Kelly Hansen and the singer from Lion, Cal Swan. These guys were all great.
Oh yeah.
When I think about it, I've just been, and of course Corabi. Corabi's he is mind-blowingly talented, that guy. And he's so humble that he doesn't come up as being one of the greats, but in my mind, he is one of the greats. And so he would certainly be on something like that. But I don't have any plans to do that either. It's I can't tell you what I'm going to do.
I understand. It's fair. It's fair. I mean, I'll reapproach you when the time comes to talk about whatever you're doing. But I guess it is amazing because looking at your list of all the groups you've been in, it's like amazing amount of like high quality singers you've been in, like legendary. I mean, to me, the ultimate rock and roll raspy voice is Corabi. I've had him on, or I actually I had Keith on actually before because of Burning Rain. So I'm a fan of the band.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. I think John is as I mentioned, he's like, he doesn't come up as the first guy, but everybody always has great things to say about him. And if you, as you know, because you know him, he's the most down to earth musician that you'll ever be around, and super funny, and so it's definitely I love working with him, and he's also a really great guitar player as well. He's like, I'll play him a riff that I think is cool, and I'm like, what do you think, John? I'll just hand it to him see what he comes up with, because he's got this weird way of like twisting stuff around, and was like, well, what about like that? And I was like, that's cool. And that's kind of what we had done on the two albums that we did with the Dead Daisies, Make Some Noise and and Burn It Down. And like one song in particular, and there's always a couple, but one song was called Song and a Prayer. And and uh, Marty Fredrickson had the producer who worked on those albums, and Marty's so talented. He's a great producer. He said, "Hey, Doug, I want you to put some kind of a little line in the chorus of Song and a Prayer." So I came up with this little part, and it was in probably meant to be ear candy or something. I'm not sure, or a secondary melodic hook, I guess. I don't know. But John said, "Dude, that actually would be great to start the song off with." And so Marty and him came to me and goes, "Can you redo it, but do it in the right key so it fits on the intro?" Kind of like a Sweet Child of Mine type of guitar moment.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's what we did, and it was John's idea. So it's great working with people like that you know have extra ideas. So you're not only by yourself doing guitars.
So you do a lot of the writing or the skeleton writing for a lot of the band at times, especially with the
Well, I
sounds
mean,
like.
it's whoever. It could be anybody's idea. I've definitely had a hand in most of the songs in terms of guitar parts or writing guitar parts or um, but if John's got a song, I know it's going to be good. I might put a little twist on it or something. But yeah, that's how we wrote. We would all get together with our ideas and we'd bang through the ones that we thought were the best together. So
Mhm.
everybody was involved and everybody had a vested interest in the song, and that's how we did it. It was like really teamwork. So it was, I think it's a good way to work instead of, of course, I can build a demo in my studio and I can't really sing that well, but I have melodic ideas and I'll have like um, timing of the phrasing,
Right.
so I can kind of emulate what the lead vocal, my idea for the lead vocal would do. Um, but I think it's just always turned out better when you leave that blank canvas and you say, here's the basic idea, and don't go too far with it because then people come up with other things that you wouldn't have thought of, and it makes the song better.
I think a lot of your singers always are the bluesy rock singers from Coverdale, even Keith, Corabi, Glenn, all of them. I mean, Ronnie was more of a hard rock, but he still had blues
Yeah,
in him originally. So I mean, all your singers are already based from that. So
yeah.
like you're like, you don't want to color up too much because you got those guys coming in.
That makes me think of Ronnie. Like, he wouldn't when he was doing demos when we were making demos at his house. Um, or Jimmy Bain and I wrote a couple of songs here that we took to Ronnie on the Killing the Dragon album, and but I never heard what Ronnie was going to do until we were at the studio. The track was already cut. Like I had no idea what he was going to do, and this one song was called "Scream" on that album, and it was basically just Jimmy and I kind of felt like, hey, there's a couple of riffs that would fit in nicely with the songs we already have, something a little different that would make it feel like a complete album. And when I heard Ronnie sing that for the first time, I was like the explosion going off. It was so cool. And the same thing with David Coverdale. Coverdale, we were here at my house, and he used to come over. I'd go to his place for a week. He'd come to my place for a week, and I'd have a little guitar part. He'd be like, what are you hearing vocally? Like, how is this supposed to work? How are you hearing this? And I would just sing something, and I'd be a little nervous about it because, it's just David Coverdale is the
Yeah.
greatest hard rock singer ever. Um, and he would just take that little seed of an idea and just wham, just nail it, just smash it. So cool. And that happened with Good to Be Bad. I was just playing the part, and I said, "Tell me, baby," and he says, play the riff." Hit the drum machine, play the riff, and he's full voice singing behind me, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, that's insane!" So it's always fun to hear these guys when they actually light it up. and go full voice.
Well, it seems, yeah. I mean, they're huge voices. I mean, I've heard Ronnie live. It just was ridiculous. I mean, obviously you played with him, but of all the singers I've seen, he's just one of them. It was just like I don't even think he needed a microphone. His voice was so large. Um, you know,
I have, I, the only bad thing about that is I've got tinnitus in my ear that I've had to learn to live with. I'm actually getting ready to go to an audiologist to see what I can do about it, because it was one day I was on stage with Ronnie. We were playing a reasonably intimate gig in Europe, and his voice was just tearing my head off. I couldn't even go to the front of the stage because it was just ripping my head, and it was ripping from the side and from in front of me. And I look at the monitor engineer over here, and I'm like, dude, vocal, down, down, down. And he's just looking at me like this, nope. And I was like, my ears down, turn it down. You know, this was when we had wedges. We didn't have in ears, but it was hurting
right.
my ears. And he just looked at me and goes, I can't help you. So so I was just like, okay. So then I just actually would reach down and unplug the wedges in front of me. So at least I wasn't getting nailed from the front. But I still remember that day, man. It blew my ear out so bad. And it's
Oh,
not funny. So but I would recommend for musicians watching us to always try to protect your ears, because once it goes, it's done.
when you're actually writing and you're touring because you're such a you're a guitarist guitar player. Are you playing and touring with the same guitar you're writing with, or do you have like a good guitar? Certain guitars you like to write with have a certain sound at
Uh,
home, and you don't want to take that on the road type of deal, and then you get your road guitar, or you just
no, I actually if I've got something I want to use, I take it with me on the road. I mean, there's a um there's a particular gold top that the front of house engineer with the Dead Daisies really has always loved. And so ever since 2016, I've had that guitar with me, and I call it the Black Eye Les Paul because it's got a black pickguard on a gold top, and kind of looks like a black eye. And so that guitar's always been there. And then a couple of years back, Gibson let me borrow, kind of permanent loan, I should say, but they let me borrow a flame top Les Paul that I fell in love with. And so those have been the two that are on the road all the time. And then I'll carry one with me so that I always have a guitar with me, because
right.
I can't stand to be in a hotel room without a guitar. It's just a weird thing. I just gotta have it. And it gets harder and harder to travel with a guitar, but somehow, I've been able to do it. Um, but I just recently got a 1953 gold top that is insane, and that's the first time I didn't bring it because I had just gotten it, and it's so perfect, and it's a player, so it's not like worth as much as a proper
Right.
vintage collector grade 1953. But I just want to take the chance of it getting lost or
Broken.
whatever. But so I took a 78. It's still a vintage guitar, but I took a 1978 cream Les Paul that since I had not used it since Whitesnake. And so it's been about 10, 12 years something. And the sound man came and goes, dude, that guitar might even be better than the Black Eye, And I'm like, really? And he goes, man, it sounds insane. And I started to, fall in love with it again. I hadn't played it really. So I take what I want. And I probably will at some point take that 53, as long as I'm not as long as I know what my schedule is going to be, so that I don't have to risk checking it, because obviously that would suck.
That would stress me out. That would be the worst. The guitars, everything else would be fine with.
Yeah,
The clothes, you can buy everything else,
yeah.
but the guitar you can't replace. I'd buy a seat for it. I would like, you know,
Man, it's the whole thing about, yeah, yeah. That's what Bonamassa does. So he's always got his guitar strapped in, and it's weird too, Sean, because there's airlines. There was one flight we were on, me and Brian Tishy, and Brian always carries a guitar. He always loves to play guitar on the road. And there was one flight. It was like going from, it was like a small plane, and it was Austrian Airways or something. And I thought, okay, this is gonna. there was no room in the overhead. There was nothing, but there was a seat between us that was not occupied. And
Yeah.
the flight attendant let us lay the guitars on the seat and strap them in. And that's something that would never be allowed in the US because they always,
No.
worry about like just being able to escape in case of emergency. And they're very tough in the US. There's been a couple times I got ejected from flight because I didn't want to check my guitar, and so I because I didn't have it in a hard case. So now I always
Oh,
keep it in a hard case in case I have to check it, but I just don't want to. But anyway, the point being that we got our guitars on a flight, a la kind of Joe Bonamassa, and it felt good.
yeah. I couldn't even imagine that the stress of that. I don't know what they're worried about. Like you're in a plane, you're not going anywhere. Like once it's strapped down, it's not going to fly around. You're not going to get pulled over to the curb. If you're on a plane, you go down. You got bigger issues than a guitar.
Yeah,
At that point,
I know
that's the least of my problems. You know?
they're just talking about like say for example they're talk. See, that's the thing is like in Europe it's different rules. I guess it's up to the airline. I guess. But in the U.S., you would never be allowed to do that because if the plane's taxiing and a fire breaks out, then the people are, trying to get out, and the guy that's on the other side of the guitarist gets stuck. So that's why they wouldn't do it probably. But um, we were happy about that we got our guitarists on that flight.
Maybe it's, what it is. The U.S. isn't as supportive of rock music, and Europe is. So they're like,
It's true.
so that counts as
It's
another
true.
person to
Every
them.
time no, it's so true. I mean, look, I love flying, and I don't want to say anything
No,
negative at all about it because it's a luxury. But definitely, when I walk onto an American Airlines flight with a guitar, I'm kind of like sheepish, like what's going to happen, even though I'm probably in business class or whatever. But when I walk onto a European flight, this the flight attendants are like, "Woo! All right, we're gonna rock today. What song are we playing?" And they're excited about it. So it's just a different vibe. But um, there's been two times when I didn't fly. Once was in Russia where the guy was like, "Nope, you're not taking that on the flight." And I said, "Well, I'm not flying." And he goes, "Okay." And so I didn't. I took another aircraft. And then there was one time in New York when I think the airline made a mistake. They I was trying to comply with them, but I just wanted to speak to a supervisor. And the lady said, "Go sit over there and wait." And I was waiting, and finally the people started to give away seats. And I thought, well, I better go back and talk to them. And I think they gave my seat away. And then they just were like, "Yeah, you got the guitar. You already said you weren't going to check it, so you're out." So I was like,
oh,
okay.
kind of lame. You know, should
Well,
be a big
it
deal.
happens, but it's ever since the COVID stuff, it's been crazy flying. So that's why I don't want to say anything negative because
No,
the, a lot of passengers have gotten pretty aggressive.
yeah, I wouldn't be cool. Don't say anything. Put your mask on if it's crazy in there, and keep your head down.
Yeah.
All those germs. It's not even COVID. It's just germs. I'm like, I'd wear a whole costume to cover up. Just in general.
Well, during that time I did, but now I wouldn't do the whole mask thing is like it's just too much. And there's too many times that people were wearing a mask and they still got sick anyways. What I do like is I'm supportive of people wearing masks when they're sick. I think
Yeah,
that's cool. That's like in the first time I ever saw that was in the 80s going to Japan. You'd see people with a mask on. It was like, what's going on? It's like, oh yeah, that's typical tradition. When somebody's got a cold or whatever, they wear a mask. So they don't
it's
spread
polite.
the germs,
Yeah.
and also like a white flag going, hey, I'm sick, just so you know, so stay away or wash your hands and stuff after. But as far as not getting infected, the little mask with the holes in the side, it's not going to save me from. I'm going to get whatever I'm going to get. So I just
I
have
just
to.
hate it.
I think you just need to keep your immune system as strong as you can, and you know, just do your best to keep your hands clean. And I remember that's what they always said when I was a kid. You get the flu by eating. Your hands get a germ on it, and then you eat a potato chip, and then you get the flu. So the same thing now.
Wash your hands. I obsessively wash. I think that's why I don't get sick that much. I don't, you know, I think you think about it, I'd be a doctor all the time because everything's so gross. So I'm like,
You
yeah, I'll
probably
watch.
you probably got a good immune system though. You don't get sick a lot. I don't either, but it could be all the it could be my it could be I don't know what it is, but it could be that I've put so many things in my body over the years. It's like germs just don't want to know.
You've traveled a lot, so maybe you've built up something. Yeah, I wouldn't wear a mask unless I was like on a plane and everyone was sick. I think that's the only time I thought about it. But I don't even have like the idea of being on a plane nowadays. So I wouldn't even be there, at that
Well,
point.
they say that the plain air is very clean because it gets recirculated. So who knows, man? I don't know. All I know is that we're we made it through that pandemic, thankfully, and uh, even if there was, I mean, it was horrible, the lives that were lost for various reasons, but we made it through. Now we're back. We're rocking again. It's like it's good. We're still got to deal with this. We're gonna have to deal with these types of things forever, but we're back, and it's great.
And I think it's bigger. It feels like music came back even bigger. I think it just reminded people how much fun they wanted to have. Rock seems like it had it. Rock's already having a resurgence of like the
We
'70s and '80s and '90s. It just feels like it's
we
like I call it
definitely
the victory lap.
well we definitely had bigger crowds than we ever had with the Dead Daisies tour that we just wrapped up in Europe, and primarily I think we were mostly in Germany, and we never sold as many tickets, so that was great. And I will say that the band was with Michael Devin on bass, Brian Tishy, David, and John and myself. It's a good lineup. It's three fifths of a Whitesnake lineup, and John Corabi and David Lowy, and it's like we definitely were into it. And the show was great. John just killed. He was just he was so on, and he's such a, a great front man in terms of he connects with people so well. It's like I'm in awe of that because you know he's in the moment. Like he can remember every little thing that went down at the show and what he said and who he was thinking about, who he was talking to. And the last person I knew that was like that was Dio, because he knew every aspect of the show that he just performed, and he was just in the moment. And like when Dio would perform, it would remind me of watching Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like there's just this guy is just owning it. Like just you can't be any more present than Ronnie or Stevie Ray. Those two guys, that's the pinnacle of where live performance is to me.
And now you got now with John. So John came in. He was in, then he was out because it was just too much touring. Are you guys going to slow down your touring a little bit? Like, what's the difference without trying to dig? I'm not looking for dirt. I just know John just couldn't. The
No,
touring
no,
was
no.
just so much, and I was like, well, he's back in now. Is touring just different now
He
because of COVID, or he changed his mind?
uh, no, basically he always had a welcome. I mean, anybody that's been in the Daisies family is welcome to come back or come in and out if there's an opening, whatever. I mean, it's all good people. We all know each other. We've been
Right.
friends, and um, John John was brought up to because we were thinking about the best of tour that we
Yeah.
just in August put out the best of for 10 years of the Dead Daisies, and we thought we didn't know what was going to happen. If he'd be into it or whatever, but he was super excited about it and just came in and crushed it. And we even did a couple of the songs that Glenn sang, and John just kicked ass on them. It was killer. Um, but to answer your earlier question, I think at that time we were just going hardcore a lot, and he wanted to take a break, and he had a live album that he had done that he wanted
Yeah.
to promote it a little bit, and his son was in the band on drums, and so he was just like, look, I'm going to take some time off, and we we didn't want it to stop. We wanted to do another record.
Yeah.
So that's when the whole thing with Glenn came in. But no, John has always been in the family, and I think it's pretty obvious. It's like John is it's his band in a sense. Him and David, they've they've done the most work on it, and John fits so well in every aspect in terms of covering other people's stuff and making it his own, to the way that he writes and stuff.
Yeah, he can do any cover song. He can sing anything. He can. I mean,
That's the thing. He makes it his own. That's why, like, "Fortunate Son," for example, is a song that
yeah,
gets a lot of streaming attention. Our version gets a lot of streaming attention. I guess because it's when people search out that song, all the various versions come up. But John really made that into a Daisy sound. And he did the same thing with "Midnight Moses" too, which he made it sound like it was a song that was written by the
yeah.
Daisies.
Actually, I didn't catch it at first, but "Fortunate Son," I was never a big fan of that song. Didn't like not like it. I don't want to get beat up by the internet or anything. This wasn't
Yeah,
my thing. That's not really my band. But this version, now I'm playing it. Now I'm like playing with the album. I'm liking it. I wasn't before.
that's
Like this was
cool.
my thing. I would change the channel. Be like, oh, I get it. Just not my thing. But when you guys
Yeah,
changed it up a little bit, that's his voice just kind of like changes things for me.
yeah, and we cut that in like literally 2 takes. I don't know which one we used, but Tishy nailed it, and we just fixed up the guitars, and John sang it. It was done really quickly.
What is the so going into next year touring? So more Dead Daisy stuff. Like I don't know what you can say, what you can't say. So I'm not gonna. What can you
But
share?
we're
Just
gonna
what's happening?
we're definitely gonna be working. We've got a plan for next year that we got a little time off now for the holidays, but we're gonna kick it off early in the year, and people definitely can follow on the Dead Daisies socials and stuff to get the most up to date info. But yeah, we do have some dates in the summertime. I know and there's some other stuff that is being looked at for
Okay.
the fall. So summer and fall probably is when we'll be off and on touring a little bit. And prior to that, we'll probably kick around some songs. We'll see what happens.
Are you guys ever? Like, that'll be just my last question. Are you guys ever writing on the road though, or is it just because you got your guitar in a
Yeah,
hotel? I mean, I know when you have
no,
time because you do so much.
no, all the time. I mean, that's one of the cool things about technology is, now you can write anywhere, you can record anywhere. We
Yeah.
prefer to record together, just for reference, because it's definitely um, it gives a different feeling than when you stack the parts on top of the drums, and then it kind of, you can sometimes you can make it sound like it was played together, but there's just this, maybe it's just me, but like when I play the guitar with the drums, it's just got a different feel.
Hmm.
And so that's how we prefer to do it. But yeah, with technology now, if somebody's got an idea, if David Lowey's playing something and I think it sparks a little interest, I'll just record it. I'll just record it on my phone, and I'll tell him, hey, by the way, you just played something that was really cool, and then I've got it
Okay.
documented, and then I can either send it to him, or I can kind of play around with it on my own, and um, you know, so we are writing on the road. John's always constantly, he'll go, oh, I got this thing, man. Play me this guitar thing, or we'll brainstorm talking about something without even having an instrument in our hands, and maybe just kind of write down that idea, or hum an idea into the phone so that you don't forget it. So there's always a little bit of creative juices flowing, and um, the only time that I kind of feel like I stop writing is after you start recording.
Right.
Once it's like once you got an album that's kind of feels like it's complete, I kind of shut down that whole thing, and that kind of allows me to recharge and just focus on the songs that we're recording at the time.
It's because a lot of players don't always do that. Some are like, I can't write on the road. I can't write. I can only write every 5 years. Like it's always interesting to see like the process of what's coming to somebody at the time and where they're at. To me, it would seem like I'd be inspired on the road because you're playing live. You're excited to get the energy going. It would feel like and then you're in your hotel room. You're like, all right, I got the energy. What am I going to do with it now? But that doesn't work for
Yeah,
everybody.
I mean,
So
no, it doesn't, because sometimes people, I mean, people are. Sometimes I'm kind of lucky. I have a little Pro Tools rig that I can take on the road. And a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't, and so they don't really have the opportunity to maybe get their ideas down as easily. but I carry one with me all the time, obviously, because I have to sometimes do a session on the road. But mentally, I probably wouldn't say that I could finish writing as easily on the road. I think I'm good for capturing ideas or
Okay.
something. But like I really need to be in the zone. Like the best zone for me is waking up with no distractions, getting some coffee, going to the studio, and seeing what comes out for the day. And that's generally where I'm the most productive. Then if I get some phone calls or if I get caught up on email or something like that, I'm not in the zone as much. So
Right.
so it's like, and once the juices get flowing, for me, I got to keep it rolling. Like it's just about to crack open. I've got a bunch of stuff I've been working on the road, little bits here and there. I'm super excited about. Um, and I wish I could tell you more about it, but you'll find out later.
That's right.
But
It's
it's just about
exciting.
to crack open. Once it cracks open, I got to keep that thing, keep it flowing. It's like you're in the zone, and then once you start to do a recording of whatever you're in the zone on, you kind of back off and start thinking about it differently. But I definitely go through peaks and valleys in writing. I don't wouldn't say I could be as productive 24/7 every day of the year like something like Glenn Hughes. He would say I write a song every day, and so he can, you know, that's just what he
That's a
does.
lot. That's a lot. Well, I want to thank you, man. This has been great. Thank you for sharing some of this stuff. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, cool interview, and I look forward to checking out the podcast. And
Yeah, I'll share all
you
those
know,
links on it and with Kat. And that'd be great.
cool. And just want to say, Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you so much for an amazing 2023, and Happy New Year for 24. And see you out there.
Well, thank you very much.